It's hard to believe, but we're wrapping up Season 4 of The Big Show. Hi, this is Bill Culhane from The Big Bid Theory here in Austin, and as always, powered by Bid Prime. The Jim Ward will be along shortly for his Season 4 final Crazy Bids You Can Win. Trust me, you don't want to miss that excellence. In our production meetings a couple of weeks ago, we debated how do we end Season 4, wanted to kind of end with a bang. As our longtime listeners know, we try to discuss topics that matter to people, to a broad audience. This season, we've had experts on to talk about everything from wildfires, disaster preparedness. A couple of episodes ago, infrastructure. That's how we started Season 4, you may recall. Had Barry LePatner on. We've talked about drones, the opioid crisis here in the U.S., among other conversation topics. You can go to iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Google Play, a number of other platforms if you want to check out those previous episodes of Season 4. If you're really the inquisitive sort or nostalgic, you'll find our masterpieces from Seasons 1 through 3 on those platforms as well, at least on iHeart, iTunes, and Spreaker. They go back to virtually the beginning of the show so many moons ago. It all brings us to the growth in emerging technology. We see everything from, and I'm looking here at requests from governments, collaborative robots, telemax robots, STEM robots, more on STEM in a moment. We see robot products. We see a variety of services and solutions. How about we just leave it at that? And it's coming from state, local, education, federal agencies, you name it. So we reached out to Nat Dukan from RobotLab to come on and talk about, guess what, robotics, the need for growth in education on robotics, basically the future of emerging tech. And incidentally, you do want to keep an ear out for the word integration. Nat's going to talk about that, and frankly, I find it fascinating. Nat's going to talk a little bit more about his background in a moment, and obviously he's far more qualified to go through that information than I am. But Nat works in customer success at RobotLab. He's worked in educational robotics for over a decade. He has shared his experiences with thousands of educational institutions in both the Americas and Europe.
First of all, Nat, want to welcome you to the Big Bid Theory. Appreciate you spending some time with us. And just a moment ago, I gave a little bit of your background, but explain specifically to our audience how you came to get involved in the world of robotics. And we certainly want to hear about RobotLab as well.
Absolutely. And thank you, Bill, for having me here at the show. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here and share a little bit to the audience about robotics. And so my personal background and what I do, I've been involved with robotics for the past 10 years. And I started with a company called Aldebaran, which was at the time a French company based in Paris, the first company to manufacture a humanoid robot called Now. Now, a humanoid robot is a small robot that has a feature of a human, meaning that it can walk, it can talk, it can recognize faces, etc. And that company that I started with in 2009 was manufacturing that robot with the goal to have it being a companion, so a robotics companion. When I stumbled upon that project, I really got fascinated, and that's how I got started with the world of robotics. Now, along the way, I realized that one of the best application for robotics was in the education space. And I met with Elad Inbar from RobotLab, who started exactly with that mission to create educational content and value for schools and learners to be able to use robots. And when we two met, we decided to join forces, and I joined RobotLab in order to bring robotics to the education world. And that's how I got involved with that, with RobotLab. And what RobotLab is doing today is precisely that. The vision and mission of RobotLab is to make robotics useful, accessible to as many students and learners as possible. What we do is precisely we create a software that can control robots that we don't create ourselves, but that help people connect to the robot, and through the software program the robot to perform some tasks. And along the way, they're learning programming, they're learning math, they're learning sciences, they're learning robotics. That's the vision behind RobotLab.
In the introduction to the episode, Nat, STEM education, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and it's been a debate, here in the United States for the longest time, that there is a concern that the student in the United States is falling behind when it comes to STEM education. You and I are talking about robotics and, I guess in the bigger sense, talking about emerging technologies. Why is it important for young people, and I would argue everyone, to have an understanding of robotics?
It's a great point here. The way I see it is that technology, is evolving pretty fast, and it's evolving even faster and faster every day, right? So if you think about it, like what has been accomplishing in the past 10 years is a tremendous jump from, where we were 10 years ago. And if you look at the pace of change and the pace of technology, it's changing faster and faster. Like 100 years ago, you could have a job for all your life, and you can have perhaps the same job, and you would see that technology was changing and evolving, but that wouldn't affect you too much for your career lifetime. Today, I think that is very, very different. And most of us, or many of us, will change job multiple times, will change industries perhaps multiple times within our career because just the pace is changing and the jobs are evolving. And the way we tackle the world is changing and evolving, and we need to be able to adapt. We need to be able to redefine ourselves constantly. 30 years ago, you didn't have to know how to use a computer, and it was okay. You could go around without knowing how to use a computer. Today, it's impossible to think that you can do almost any job without a computer. And the more we go, the more it's going to be like that. So the students of today, back to your question, the students of today, they need to learn how to mostly adapt themselves and how to fit a world where, within 10 years, probably some jobs are going to disappear. Some technology are going to change and evolve to new ones. So whatever you've been learning and whatever you come with as tools, for your job might not be relevant 10 years from now. And you need to constantly adapt. So for that, it's very, very important that at the roots, at the education, at the start in schools, we teach our students how to navigate that world. It's something that is very, very new. Education didn't change so much for the past perhaps 1,000 years or so, or even more than that. I mean, it's the model of education didn't change too much, but it has to change now. And we have to embed more understanding on STEM technology. And I believe that this is precisely what we are trying to do, and what all the STEM initiative is about, is to bring awareness and understanding to the students that they need to learn how to live with that technology and strive into that world that's going to be more and more technological.
Great points, Nat. And in part, that's why we're having you on the show, to present this material to our listening audience. And I travel around the United States. You actually travel around the world. And so we have seen how exciting 2018 has been here in the near term. And of course, when you talk about emerging technology, along with robotics, there's AI, gene therapy, 3D printing, nanotech, etc. A number of solutions out there. But in terms specifically on robotics, which are a few of the robotic solutions that have you really excited as you look forward to 2019?
That's also like a great point that, when we talk about robotics and you mentioned AI, you mentioned gen tech, so everything, I think, is kind of more and more merging together. And it's getting more, right, and it's getting more and more difficult to dissociate fields. So when we talk about robotics, obviously the robotics power that is, accompanied with some artificial intelligence is really what we need to look at. If you look at the system, at the whole system and everything integrated together, this is where I think things are going to be very, very exciting. As of today, if I talk, for example, about purely robotics, let's say, combined with artificial intelligence, we could look at autonomous cars or self-driving cars as a type of robot, right? So we can go back to what is a robot. But I like to define a robot as an agent that is capable of sensing the environment and acting on the environment based on some data that he collected and some educated guess or intelligence that made him choose to act this way or another. So every agent that is capable of these three things, sensing, acting, and thinking, could be called a robot. So in that sense, we can say that, a phone or when you ask for a direction from your phone and he's giving you back to the direction could be called as a robot, right? Because I'm precising that because in the head of many of the people, when we talk about robots, we really think about this movie type of robot that we see, like with maybe a head, maybe legs and arms, and that we think humanoid robots. But I think robotics and robots is way further than that, way beyond than that. Some would argue that the Amazon Echo or all these new devices that you put in your home can be called robots. Now, in that sense, what really got me excited, so many things. Like in every industry, you have tremendous application coming up, and we see all the integration of technology coming together. And if I look on my day-to-day life of 2019, I think one of the emerging tech that is going to change a lot the way we live is in the term of mobility. All these scooters that we see in the streets, and I know it's a lot of debate. For example, here in San Francisco, should we allow them or not? We are trying to bring regulations to that, but I believe that perfect integration of all the means of transportation, combining cars, more and more autonomous cars, combining electric scooters, and all of that together is really going to change the landscape of the cities, and I'm very, very excited for that. Something else that I think go along with that is augmented reality, where really we're going to see like a merge between the digital and the world that we experience, and more and more devices are going to come, and that are going to help us navigate the world with like devices that are going to integrate the digital information with the world. So think about like you riding a scooter that you found on your app, that you unlocked on your app, and you maybe wear a little device that you see where to go, and you see your map directly from the lens of your glasses or something like that. So I think this is going to be very, very strong in 2019.
I agree with you. And as a matter of fact, we had Robert Scoble. I don't know if you're familiar with Robert, but we had Robert Scoble on the show. I guess it was approximately a year ago. And Robert talked about the advancement of AI and mixed reality, et cetera. So that was a really interesting conversation as well. And we see a number of city, you mentioned the scooters, and transportation. We see a number of city and state governments, I guess even on the federal side as well, where governments have been using robotics for decades. As is typical, governments are usually at the front of using or developing various technologies, and we see robotics being used in many interesting ways by governments. Now, Nat, the final question I want to ask you, and it goes along with what you and I just discussed as far as today and what's coming up in 2019. But if you looked into, I say, a crystal ball into the future, if you and I were having this conversation 10 years from now, in the year 2028, what do you think robotics will look like then?
Well, it's a very interesting question, and of course, really, really hard to make predictions. So I hope you don't take me on that. When we talk in 10 years, if I'm wrong, I think that one of the most interesting things that we see is that everything that we're talking about that is coming up is going to be integrated. I think the integration of everything together, a smooth integration in everything together, is going to be very present in 10 years from now. And when I talk about integration, it's not only integration between the machines, the robots, and the world, but perhaps what we're going to be able to discuss is the potential integration with us as humans, right? Maybe in 10 years from now, we'll discuss should we enhance our capabilities by changing our biological legs to maybe robotics legs that let us like walk faster, run faster, or maybe like add an exoskeleton to be able to pick up, heavy objects. So I think like we see that coming up in many labs. For example, in healthcare, you have a lot of progress that is made, and some people who are in wheelchair today are testing some exoskeleton that will help them actually walk. When you assist with the machine, and that I think is fascinating. And what we're going to see is that integration coming more and more, where we're going to blend perhaps the machine and the human in a way that we can't even think about today. So maybe in 10 years from now, we're going to ask the question of, should we plug a chip in our brain so we have, a better memory? I believe this type of discussions will be coming up. And that's just, on that particular aspect. But in any aspect, if we talk about autonomous cars, I think we're going to reach full automation within 10 years. And many cities, perhaps not all the cities, but many cities will be equipped with regulation and all the proper infrastructure to host, a fully automated fleet of cars. And all of this is going to be very, very real. And one thing that I certainly want to say that because we cannot forecast too much the future, and that's back to kind of like what RobotLab is doing, I think education is really, really key because we don't know and everything is going to change so much. We really need to be prepared and ready to handle that technology with, the proper care, the proper way in many different aspects, from like a moral perspective to like just like a very concrete utilitarian perspective. How do you use that technology? And so that goes, of course, by education.
I agree. And it's so many exciting applications. And that's why what you're doing there at RobotLab to help students understand the technology, understand the possibilities is so important. And Nat, on behalf of our audience and everybody here at the show, we appreciate you spending some time. I know you're a very busy person, so thank you very much for coming by.
Oh, thank you very much, Bill. It was great talking to you, and I hope we can talk in 10 years and check more on, see where we're at.
Thanks again to Nat for coming on the show. And by the way, also want to extend our thanks to Priscilla Heath from RobotLab, who helped us with coordinating Nat's visit. And now it's that time, the time that everybody circles on their calendar. Jim Ward, my co-host. Jim and I have been together on the show since its very beginning. As a matter of fact, if I recall correctly, the title of our very first episode was Birth of a Podcast, or words to that effect. But anyway, Jim's been here, and Jim is the originator. He is the founding father of Crazy Bids You Can Win. And Jim, for the final time here in season 4, my good friend, my co-host, take it away.
Crazy bids, crazy bids, crazy bids, crazy bids, crazy bids, crazy bids that you can win. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to this edition of Crazy Bids that you can win. My name is the Jim Ward, and I want to thank Mr. Bill Colhane for that rousing introduction. I'll see if I can live up to the to the title there of conductor of Crazy Bids. So, you know the drill. I go in to Bid Prime's database, and I find something that just blows your mind that the government buys, and usually it ends up being something that I could win or would win if I had time. So this for this edition of Crazy Bids You Can Win, the special edition, It is in the U.S. state of Virginia, and it's for an ethics course development. Okay, so those words always kill me. You know, anytime you have somebody who's superior with their ethics, that always it just makes me chuckle, because who's to say what's ethical in any given moment? I mean, of course, okay, I get it. You know, they're there to teach people who may not be aware, I guess, of what's right and what's wrong in this world. But I don't know, man. At the end of the day, I think it's innate. I do. And maybe I just had great parents, but I know right from wrong. I do. And believe it or not, I've actually done wrong before. I know. Gasp, right? So, you know, with ethics, so this bit is for them to do seminars and things like that, because they're this ethical expert. I don't know. I've always found that the more ignorant a person is, the more insanely, stubbornly that they hold on to their ideals. And that tends to be the case with the people that I've encountered that are, you know, these, and the word mentor is thrown around way too liberally. I don't even know what that means, frankly, to most people. But in this case, an ethics expert, I've met only a few, and they were steadfast in their belief, which by the way, were their two schools of thought were not synonymous, which I found to be really, really funny. That there's more than one way to be an ethical expert. But, you know, at the end of the day, the truth, it's not something outside, you know, to be found or to have fallen in your lap. It's something to be realized. And you know in that moment if you're doing something wrong. I mean, you do. And I don't see what would make someone an expert in that. That people, I know people that can. Well, I mean, that they say, right, that the easiest person to lie to is ourselves. And I think there's a lot of truth to that when I see the behavior of certain people that somehow they don't see the ethical lines in the sand that they just pillaged and danced on, did like this crazy Samoan dance on, right? I don't know why Samoan dance. I just think of kicking up a lot of sand. I don't know. But, as far as the line of ethics, but they don't see it that way. And that kills me because it's so obvious to everyone else that that's wrong to do something like that versus, that's not wrong. You know. And it's not so much a question for these people that I'm thinking of. It's not so much a question of teaching them or of them learning. It's actually quite the opposite. It's a question of unlearning for them, and I don't think they're capable of it. People that are unethical, you know what I mean? I don't know if they can actually unlearn that. So I'll tell you what would make sense, and I know this is going long, and I apologize, but I'm fervent. What would make sense if they had an ethical deprogramming consulting job for someone to go in and explain to people who think that they're moral and just just the error of all of our ways. I mean, you know, heaven forbid. I mean, I'm as guilty as anyone of anything in any given time. But the key is you have to discover yourself. Otherwise, you're depending on the thoughts of others who really don't even know themselves. So, as far as the ethical expert, the ethical, you know, situation that these people would be solving or imparting, I can do it for them really quickly. I mean, just don't be a jackass. You know, do the right thing. When in doubt, use the best judgment that you're able to call upon to figure out the closest thing to the right thing, and do that. I mean, it's that simple. So that's it. I apologize for getting all heavy here, but want to thank Bill and the crew for a wonderful season here with crazy bids that you can win on TBBT. Crazy bids, crazy bids, crazy bids, crazy bids, crazy bids. All right, well, I will turn it back over to the professionals. Everyone have a fantastic break. I will be actually in Acre, Brazil, so hopefully I'll make it back in one piece. Bill, I'm gonna miss you guys. Hope you have a great break. And turning it back over to you guys. Take care. Thank you.
As always, Jim, stellar work, and I'm going to be honest. It's getting a little misty over here, coming to the realization that we just heard the final crazy bids for season 4, and that's going to do it for this season. Stay tuned, by the way. From time to time, we'll be rolling out episodes from the season, this past season. And as always, we thank you so much for sharing, downloading, and following the show. Don't be strangers, by the way. Even though Jim and we're going to go on hiatus, continue to email me at bcallhane@bidprime.com. As everybody knows by now, his inbox fills up. Jim's email is jward@bidprime.com. And we're also, over the holidays, we're going to remain active on the Twitterverse. You can follow us at The Big Bid Theory. My personal Twitter handle is contract_hunter. Jim is over at jward, the number 6, jward6. And don't forget Facebook as well. Powered by Bid Prime, on behalf of our TBBT staff in desperate need of a vacation, for my co-host, Jim Ward, this is Bill Culhane. Thanks again to Nat Dukan from RobotLab. Until Season 5 is up and running, go Gunners, Barracudas, Tigers, Bobcats, and Cubs. And we wish you all the best in growing your business.
Powered by Bid Prime, we thank you for tuning in to The Big Bid Theory. From Austin, Texas, the show is produced by Bill Culhane and Jim Ward. Producer and engineer is Rick Jennings. Distribution, research, and production assistance by Lauren Jones and Kevin Henderson. You can find other episodes of The Big Bid Theory on platforms to include iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, and Google Play.